as Art mentioned, we're really fortunate to have three really high-level speakers from NASA here today that are going to be talking about how small companies, such as hopefully the folks in this room, can help NASA to achieve the nation's critical space exploration objectives. As Art mentioned, my background as running a small company, and we'll talk about the capstone mission after this, actually crossed all three of the mission directorates in our journey to getting to orbit next year. This panel, as Art mentioned, has 3 of the 4 mission directorates at NASA. And so these folks are tasked with working together across the agency to help NASA to achieve the ambitious and exciting and important objective of landing the first woman and the next man on the moon by 2024. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to give you some idea of who is going to be talking on the panel, and then we're going to show a short video clip to put some of this in context, and then we'll get into some questions and hopefully have some questions from you all as well. So first we have Steve Clarke, representing the Science Mission Directorate. He's the Deputy Associate Administrator for Exploration in that Mission Directorate. His background includes time at the Office of Science and Technology Policy and the Executive Office of the President, time leading NASA's Heliophysics Division. He's was a director of the division at NASA that develops space capabilities for other U.S. government agencies, so a lot of interaction and development and delivery of systems. Has worked with others throughout NASA to develop the architecture for human exploration beyond Earth orbit, and has engineering and management degrees from the University of Central Florida. Next over we have Dr. Chris Moore, who represents the Human Exploration and Operations Mission Directorate. He's the Deputy Director of the Advanced Exploration Systems Division, where he leads the development and testing of prototype systems for future exploration missions. So his portfolio is a lot of the new and emerging capabilities that we need to achieve the ambitious goals of the administration. He has managed 5 major technology programs since 2002. Prior to 2002, he was at NASA's Langley Research Center supporting space shuttle payloads and robotics research. He earned his PhD from the University of Minnesota and has a master's from Virginia Tech and a bachelor's from the University of Virginia. For those of you local to Colorado, that'd be like going to CU Boulder for your undergrad and CSU for your master's. So I imagine you have a little tension during football season on that, but that's great. Thank you for joining us today. And last but not least, we have Walt Engelund from the Space Technology Mission Director. You've heard from Walt a couple times yesterday. He's the Deputy Associate Administrator for Programs in STMD. And in this role, he provides leadership and management for the Directorate, overseeing over $1 billion of annual investments in technology. Serves as the decision authority for a lot of the programs and projects, making sure they align with the technology needs and priorities of the agency. And his background includes 30 years at NASA's Langley Research Center in Hampton, Virginia, where he led technical organizations responsible for things such as the Space Launch System and Orion Launch Abort System. And he is a recognized expert in hypersonics flight and planetary entry systems, and I hear you're looking forward to landing some folks on Mars in a few years. So, great. So before we get into the panel, as I mentioned, we're going to show a short video to kind of set the stage for NASA's future exploration objectives.
50 years ago, we pioneered a path to the moon. The trail we blazed cut through the fictions of science and showed us all what was possible.
It's very pretty out here.
Today, our calling to explore is even greater. To go farther, we must be able to sustain missions of greater distance and duration. We must use the resources we find at our destinations. We must overcome radiation, isolation, gravity, and extreme environments like never before. These are the challenges we face to push the bounds of humanity. We're going to the moon to stay by 2024, and this is how.
This all starts with the ability to get larger, heavier payloads off-planet and beyond Earth's gravity.
For this, we designed an entirely new rocket.
The Space Launch System. SLS will be the most powerful rocket ever developed.
And with components in production
and more in testing,
this system is capable of being the catalyst for deep space missions.
We need a capsule
that can support humans from launch
through deep space and return safely back to Earth.
For this, we've built Orion.
This is NASA's next-generation human space capsule.
Using data from lunar orbiters that continue to reveal the moon's hazards and resources,
we're currently developing an entirely new approach to landing and operating on the moon.
Using our commercial partners to deliver science instruments and robotics to the surface, we are paving the way for human missions in 2024.
Our charge is to go quickly and to stay, to press our collective efforts forward with a fervor that will see us return to the moon in a manner that is wholly different than 50 years ago.
We want lunar landers that are reusable.
That can land anywhere on the lunar surface. The simplest way to do so is to give them a platform in orbit around the moon from which to transition.
An orbiting platform to host deep space experiments and be a waypoint for human capsules. We call this lunar outpost Gateway.
The beauty of the Gateway is that it can be moved between orbits
It will balance between the Earth and Moon's gravity.
in a position that is ideal for launching even deeper space missions.
In 2009, we learned that the moon contains millions of tons of water ice.
This ice can be extracted and purified for water. It can be separated in oxygen for breathing or hydrogen for rocket fuel.
The moon is quite uniquely suited
to prepare us and propel us to Mars and beyond.
This is what we are building.
This is what we're training for.
This we can replicate throughout the solar system.
This is the next chapter of human space exploration.
Humans are the most fragile element of this entire endeavor, and yet we go for humanity. We go to the moon and on to Mars to seek knowledge and understanding and to share it with all. We go knowing our efforts will create opportunities that cannot be foreseen. We go because we are destined to explore and see it with our own eyes. We turn towards the moon now, not as a conclusion, but as preparation, as a checkpoint toward all that lies beyond. Our greatest adventures remain ahead of us. We are going.
We're going.
We are going.
We are going. We're going.
That's great. I'm pretty sure I've seen that movie or that video at least 200 times. I still get goosebumps, and we're really fortunate. We're going to kick off our panel with a couple of charts from one of the stars of that movie, or that great thing. So, Steve, if you want to get started.
Thank you, Brad. Yeah, I got to say, I don't get tired of saying that, and it's not because I'm in it. In fact, it's kind of scary because at headquarters we've got these screens near the elevators, and when they play these loops, you'll be talking to somebody, all of a sudden you look up and see yourself talking, and it's just kind of a little bit, intimidating. But thank you for having me here today. Thank you, Art and Magda, for a great job of organizing this. This is my first visit to this Innovation Opportunity Conference, and I'm just honored to be here to talk to you a little bit about the Moon to Mars effort that we're doing. As Brad said, I am in the Science Mission Directorate. I work very closely with my colleagues, Chris and Walt and others in the other mission directorates. We're trying to make this happen. I'm going to talk a little bit about one specific area in Science Mission Directorate, which I think is very appropriate for this audience. If you want to go to the next slide. Something we're excited about. It's the Commercial Lunar Payload Services. I'm sure you've heard about it. This is really something brand new that NASA is trying, and we're paving the way in the Science Mission Directorate with basically buying a ride to the moon on commercial launch and landing services. And so we wanted to really jumpstart this sector of business with a lot of different companies. And in fact, in November of 2018, a year ago, we awarded 9 contracts to these companies up here, some of which representatives are here in the audience. Oh, thank you. And so we're pretty excited about having these 9 folks on board. And what we do with the Commercial Lunar Payload Services is we issue delivery task orders to all of these providers, and then they choose if they'd like to propose back to us, and we evaluate these, and we will award what we call delivery task orders. And we will provide instruments and technology development payloads to the awarded providers to deliver to the surface of the moon. Some will be location agnostic, there'll be specific locations we want to go to from a science research standpoint, and specific landing times as well. So we did do the first awards in May of this past year, and I'll go to the next slide here in a minute and tell you who. You probably already know who. But what's really interesting about this too is we're going to create a cadence of 2 deliveries per year. And again, these are not NASA missions. These are the commercial provider missions. There will be other customers on these lunar landers. In fact, we already know there are on the first two. And we're also doing an on-ramp. Because of our charge by the White House to land the first woman and the next man on the moon in 2024, we realized that we needed some additional capability earlier than later. And so we're on-ramping what we call enhanced lander capabilities to increase the capability to land heavier payloads earlier on the moon than what we were originally planning. And so we plan to announce the awards for that this month. I can't say anything much more about that right now, but stay tuned. But I think the real key here is for those in this room, I think it would be very helpful if you haven't already to make connections with these 9 providers. In fact, I saw some of that interaction yesterday where people were connecting up, where there might be some advanced technology that can help evolve these landing capabilities with these commercial companies. Because I expect to see some evolution in these landing capabilities. They won't stay static. There'll be increased capabilities on the landers themselves. They'll be able to last longer on the surface of the moon in different thermal environments. That's what we're going to be looking for, because we're going to want to be able to continue to send technology demonstration and science instruments that last longer and provide us data much longer as well. So very important, if you haven't already, to start making connections to these companies. And so my last slide, these were the 2 companies that were awarded the delivery task orders, Astrobotic and Intuitive Machines, both of which are going to be landing in 2021. It's not that far off. You know, the movie says we are going. We are working together with these 2 companies. We're starting to talk interfaces for our science instruments. We've already awarded the science instruments that we're going to be flying on here, and we've actually decided the manifests that are going to go for both of these landers. We have a second set of instruments that we've already awarded that are in development now, and we'll put out delivery task orders for landing missions in 2022, and those instruments will then be manifested on whomever we're going to pick there. And so we're starting this cadence of 2 per year. We're starting this robust pipeline of technology demonstration and instrument payloads. We're really excited about the opportunities working with our commercial partners on this, and it's certainly going to evolve and grow. So stay tuned. I hope to be able to come back in a year and tell you where we're at with all of this as well. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Brad. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Chris, would you like to?
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to tell you about our plans following Artemis landing on the moon in 2024. We've heard a lot about the plan in the movie, and yesterday where we're using SLS and Orion to build up a small gateway in lunar orbit, and then using that as a staging point to assemble the lunar lander and carry the crew down to the surface. In 2026, after we first landed, we're going into Artemis Phase 2. And in that phase, we're going to focus on sustainability. So what do we mean by sustainability? Well, it's going deeper into space and having the crew to conduct longer duration missions. We're trying to reduce their dependence on resupply from Earth. And we want to use reusable systems so we can have a lander that cycles between the gateway and the lunar surface. We want to use the moon as a test bed for the technologies that we need to go to Mars. So one of the first steps is to in place key elements of surface infrastructure, like fission or solar power systems, or in situ resource utilization plants that can process lunar regolith to extract water and convert that into hydrogen and oxygen. So both of those areas are ripe for commercial partnerships. If NASA and a company can co-invest in surface power system that after the power system is up and running, the company can sell power back to NASA. And so we're trying to stimulate a lunar economy through commercial partnerships. Another example would be the propellants produced by an oil plant. They could be sold back to NASA to enable refueling of our landers on the surface. So here's some of the key technologies we need for sustainability. And we're going to test on the moon. Logistics reduction is very important to reduce our need for resupply from Earth. So we're interested in techniques to use in-space manufacturing to print parts and tools on demand instead of carrying a huge inventory with us. And we need closed-loop life support systems that recycle the air, water, and waste. We need techniques to mitigate the lunar dust, which is everywhere and gets into spacesuits and rover mechanisms and other equipment on the moon. So this is an area that's we're looking for some novel ideas. So I just wanted to highlight two areas where we have really relied on Phase 3 SBIRs to develop critical components for our upcoming mission. We haven't had a new spacesuit since about 40 years ago when the current spacesuit used on ISS was debuted. So we're working on a next generation spacesuit that has greater mobility and duration and will allow us to walk on the surface of the moon. And part of that is having very small gas sensors to detect carbon dioxide in the air revitalization system. And we've been working with Vista Photonics to develop a miniature CO2 sensor, which is about the size of a quarter. And then MOXIE is a payload that's going to fly on the Mars 2020 rover, which will be launched in July of next year. And this is an experiment to demonstrate the production of oxygen from the Martian atmosphere. The Mars atmosphere is mostly carbon dioxide, so we use a process called solid oxide electrolysis to convert the CO2 into oxygen. And the reason that is important is because we want to be able to produce propellants from Martian resources, from the Mars atmosphere and ice deposits there to produce the propellants we need for the return trip home. If we had to carry all the propellants from Earth, it would be prohibitively expensive, way too much. So this is a critical technology, and we've been working with a small company called Air Squared to develop the scroll compressor, the pump that ingests the Martian atmosphere. So we hope to show that this process can result in substantial quantities of oxygen for proton production. So just in closing, we are going to the moon. We're going rapidly, and there's a lot of opportunities for commercial partnerships and contributions from small businesses. And we really rely on the SBIR program to continue technology maturation through Phase 3 SBIRs. Thank you.
Good morning again. Hopefully all of you were here yesterday morning. I got to spend a lot more time talking about Space Technology Mission Directorate and the fact that we're chartered with developing technologies that then Human Exploration and Science Mission Directorate will go fly on their missions. I actually showed this chart yesterday and talked a little bit about our Go, Live, Land, Explore theme, but let me take a few more minutes and talk about some of the details in it. We're going to the moon. and we're going to use the moon as a proving ground to get us to Mars. And if you look closely on this chart, you can actually see a horizontal trace between a lot of the technologies that we're actually going to demonstrate first on the moon, and that will be essentially extensible and directly traceable to Mars. So things like advanced surface power systems, the dust mitigation, remediation that Chris just talked about, precision landing. We could actually do the precision landing piece at the moon with sensors for essentially the terminal descent part of the phase of the mission. But the moon does not have an atmosphere, so one of the things we can't do on the moon or at the moon is demonstrate the large mass EDL that we're going to need to send humans down to the surface of Mars. So that's why the landing heavy payloads piece is up there by itself and is a pretty Mars unique capability. So we are investing in that technology apart from the lunar initiative, but all of these things together are eventually going to get us to Mars. That is the goal. We are actually standing up this fiscal year, probably in January. We're waiting to get an appropriation, a real budget. So when Congress does its job and actually gets us a budget, we'll know how much budget we have to invest in this new lunar surface innovative initiative. So you're going to be hearing a lot more about this. We are investing in technology specific to the lunar sustainability part of the lunar campaign. The reality is, if we're going in 2024, and we are, there's not a lot of opportunity to ingest and infuse new technologies. So the companies that are going to get us there, the big primes that are proposing to develop the lander system and the gateway, the technologies we have to do that are pretty much in hand. It's just a matter of integrating them and providing the budget for us to do that. And we think we're about there. But for the sustainable piece of the lunar campaign and then to get us on to Mars, there is a lot of opportunity for technology development and a lot of opportunity for you, for small businesses, for large businesses, for the whole community to come together and get us there. So you're going to be hearing more about these in the upcoming days and weeks. And when you see the calls coming out for SBIRs and the tipping point and the ACOs, probably in January, you're likely to see these areas highlighted. So pay attention. We'll give you some more details as we progress. And I think I'm going to turn it back over to Brad, and we'll do some Q&A.
Great. Thank you, Walt. So I think I'll start with a question, and maybe, Walt, if you can start, and then we can go down. Because you mentioned, and one thing we've talked a lot about in the current program is a sense of urgency and really a need to prioritize how we get things done and as an agency, as an industry, to accomplish the objectives that we have in front of us. And you mentioned, a lot of the stuff for 2024 we kind of have a good handle on, and it's the stuff after that there's a lot of opportunities. And so I had two-part question for the panel. One is, what is the timing? So if someone's thinking, 2026, that's really far away. So, those programs, though, I presume need to be, from small business perspective, starting yesterday, right, in order to be ready for those. So could you just speak a little bit about how the sense of urgency for this community, this audience, how that maps to the objectives in terms of delivering those capabilities? And then also, if you can talk a little bit, or anyone else on the panel can, about the benefits of partnerships with small businesses, with big businesses, but just in general, of partnerships to meet these highly focused timelines that we're working on.
Sure. Let me try and be careful about how I say this. But part of the urgency is really just politically driven. We want to have enough momentum in this program to get us through any change of administration, whether it happens in next year or in 4 years, 5 years. The challenge with NASA is we are a somewhat political organization. We're driven by the priorities of the current administration and of Congress. And the thinking is we need to get enough momentum into this program so that there is enough excitement in the public and with industry and globally even, so that it will sustain over multiple administrations, not just this one or the next one, but through a generation. So I think that is in large part what motivated this acceleration of both the Moon and the Mars programs. In terms of small business opportunities to get us there quicker, I think I mentioned yesterday, I come from a research center, NASA Research Center. I spent 30 years at Langley Research Center, and I have actually seen the power of working with small, nimble, agile businesses. They can move much faster, much quicker. They can pivot. If you tell them, hey, what you're doing is good, but it might be a little better if you did something else, or you did it this way, we could adjust it quicker. That is a powerful thing, and it drives schedules, and it drives our ability to take technologies and infuse them on missions. So we're relying on all of you and your small companies, small businesses to be able to do those kinds of things to get us to the sustainable part of the lunar campaign.
Great, thanks, Chris. You mentioned a couple of specific technologies that come out of small businesses that are sort of in the path of development. Could you speak to some of the, and you kind of touched a little more on some of the benefits of what those companies are able to bring in terms of agility maybe or speed that helps your program?
So, yeah, we think that small businesses can do things a lot quicker because they're not afraid to take risks. They'll try new things that some of the larger contractors are risk averse to, and they can also move a lot faster, as Walt mentioned. They're less bureaucratic. There's not a lot of overhead like there is in the agency to do things, do the smaller contractors. So we really value their contributions to our program.
Great, thanks. And Steve, I know CLIPS is not explicitly a small business program, but there's obviously a lot of small businesses involved. Maybe can you speak to some of the benefits of that involvement?
Well, I think both Walt and Chris have really described it well. It's the agility, the flexibility, the lack of risk aversion, I should say, to try something new. And that's exactly why we move forward on CLIPS. Some people see it as as an experiment for NASA to see how much they're willing to lean forward and take additional risk, because it's purely a commercial buy. We are not involved in the design of the landers. We're not going to bring a bunch of NASA engineers to review the designs of the landers. We're not involved in the procurement of the launch vehicle that they're going to use. So this is something new for NASA, and I'm excited about it. I was in the industry for 16 years before I went to civil service, so I know what's out there, what's the capability of the industry, and to utilize that in more of a partnership versus the traditional contracting that we've done over the years. The environment is ripe for this, and for it to grow. And so we're willing to lean forward with our commercial partners. A lot of those CLIPS providers you saw up there started out as small businesses. Some of them came out of the Google X Prize, if you recall that initiative. And they had investors, and the investors realized that there was some really good potential here. And now with technology maturation where it is today, this is the right time to be doing this. And as I mentioned in my talk, with companies out there that have new ideas, there are so many new and innovative ideas that we haven't even found out about that could really be the tipping point, no pun intended there, Walt, on getting some leaps in technology maturation. I mentioned thermal. We really are going to want to have long duration suites of instruments on the surface of the moon. We want to be able to take data like seismic network data. We don't want it to just sit there for one lunar day. We want to be able to operate it for months, even years. So we're going to need those capabilities on those landers to be able to survive the lunar days and nights. Those thermal gradients are huge. There are probably new innovative ideas out there for thermal management that we haven't even heard about. Composite tanks, so reducing the mass of the lander systems themselves so you can take more mass payload with you. All of those things, we're on the precipice, I think, for finding some really, really good technology developments that are going to help us in the sustained effort to return to the moon.
Great, thank you. So I think to summarize for the audience, our superpowers are that we're dynamic, we can take risks and come up with new ideas and really push them. And I think the bottom line too, and you sort of alluded to this, all of you, is that I think, and I'll say this from my perspective, the environment is uniquely ripe for those new ideas and those new capabilities to come in. I think it's the directorates and the folks here in this event, I think it's a good representation that NASA's really open and interested to understand how to reach the objectives that the agency's been given. With we say, all hands on deck on our team. We got to get these things done. And so, and you guys have answered a couple other questions that I had, so I'm gonna have to come up with some new ones, I think, and then we'll hopefully have some audience questions.
See how agile you are.
It's good. I'm gonna ad-lib a little bit. Careful. So one of the things that we talked about in terms of this was new ideas and new capabilities, and Steve, you actually kind of ended a little bit on this topic. So besides how great of an event this is, where should the industry folks that are small businesses out there, where should they be looking? Where should they be going? Who should they be talking to really understand how to map their new ideas to your programs? Right? I mean, this is, I think, definitely come back to this if it happens again, but like, what are the other places to look or resources that people should be accessing?
You want me to start with that? Well, let me give another shout out to the principal technologists, Ray Beach and John Vickers, who I think I saw in the back there. Raise your hands, guys. Yeah, they're going to do a thing at 10:30. Where's Art? 10:30. Let me put in another plug for them. Within STMD, the principal technologists really are the keepers of the discipline expertise, the domain knowledge, and they're the ones that really understand cross-agency and even out into industry where the true capabilities are and the true capability needs are. So if you don't know them, if you don't know who they are, you could actually go to the STMD website, and they've got a list of the principal technologists. You get 2 of them here today, so take advantage of that. I would also suggest you go out to other conferences. This is a great conference. I'd put in another plug for it. My first opportunity to be here this year, but I would come back again. But other conferences out there, in fact, the principal technologists and others will present typically architectures and technology gaps and technology needs, great networking opportunities for people to understand what NASA is doing and where our needs are. So anything else, Steve or Chris, you want to add to that?
Good point on the other forums, because next week in Houston, SpaceCom, I'll be there.
I will not be.
There are so many different forums and conferences out there. I would encourage you to go to most of those. Most of them are now commercially focused versus just government focused, so which is great. Something I want to bring up, I think it's important. Walt with STMD, they're really the portal, I think, particularly for NASA, for small business innovations. I can tell you right now, working together with the mission directorates between the Human Exploration Operations Mission Directorate Chris is a part of, and Walt, we are tied together so well on this effort to return to the moon and onto Mars. So if you talk with somebody within STMD, we're going to hear about it if it's something that we need to get you involved with the CLIPS providers. Mike Seelum, you've heard of, he works in SMD. I look to him, he's my key connection to STMD for all the various programs they're working. So we've got, not only at Walt and I in a lot of the same meetings and Chris and his colleagues, but Mike is on it all the time, and he'll come to me. We have bi-weekly tag-ups and say, hey, we're looking through the programs. They're looking for input from us, they being STMD, on prioritization. What are our priorities? So the mission directorates are working very well together in this effort, better than I've ever seen it actually in the agency for this. So certainly STMD, I think, is the right portal. Certainly if you see me at these forums, you can certainly stop me. I'd be happy to talk to you and make connections as well with people in my office. But I think Walt and your folks have the best continuity there on steering folks the right way.
Yeah, let me just follow up. I think yesterday it was mentioned that you can actually go to the SBIR site, and the SBIR representatives, each of the centers are also key people for you to be talking to and interfacing with, because they also have a good feel for the cross-agency, multi-center capabilities. And I think just developing the relationships with those folks, like we said yesterday, is really important. Either those individuals specifically, or they will tell you who you need to go talk to have people inside NASA understand your technology and how it might fit in.
Yeah, so the agency has a database called TechPort. It's publicly accessible, and all the technology activities within NASA are captured in that database. So it's techport.nasa.gov, and that'll give you a sense of what NASA's interested in. who's doing the work, where it's being performed, and it'll give you a point of contact for someone to call if you have an idea in the related area. Also in human exploration, we have these next step broad agency announcements, and we work with small businesses in partnership. We usually require the small business to contribute about 10% of the funding, but that allows us to meet NASA needs as well as to stimulate other applications of technology. So find out more about that at the NASA website under Next Step.
Yeah, just to add one more thing. One thing that I hadn't heard mentioned yet, and I just thought about this, is making connections with academia, particularly in the Science Mission Directorate. We put out many calls, and you heard me talk about how we're putting out calls for instruments and technology development payloads. We're looking for principal investigators to propose back to us. We're looking at not just the CLIPS providers, but looking for small spacecraft platforms to take science instruments as well. We have what we call a simplex call in SMD, where we're looking for small innovative platforms to do science. I would encourage you also to reach out to academia as well, because they're going to be looking for partnerships with you all as well to then propose back to us new innovative ways to accomplish the science objectives, such as those smaller platforms, orbital platforms, not just the landers. So that's another avenue as well.
Great, thanks. So we'll do one more quick question, and then hopefully the audience has a couple that we can end up with. So please be working those while we answer this last one I'll ask. So we talked about the benefits and the superpowers of small business. Let's talk about a little bit about some of the risks maybe that working with small businesses creates in the context, not to be a Debbie Downer, but so that industry knows the things that are worrying folks when they're saying, how does a small business fit into a critical national program? So what are some of the things, as you guys are looking at these partnerships and opportunities, that the audience and that small business in general can be working on to try to get ahead of those and mitigate some risks that you guys see when you think about what small businesses might be able to do?
One of the important things is, I think, is to bring forward a credible plan on how you're going to deliver what you say you're going to deliver. That's key, because as we're partnering and trying to evaluate how we're going to get something done, we have to look at what's going to be on the critical path. And you don't want to be on the critical path. Sometimes you can't help it. But make sure you've got good plans on and how you would mitigate the risks of not delivering on time. Just for instance, as hypothetical, say we've asked for you to deliver a certain product that we need as part of a system, and 2 months before delivery you say, I'm not going to make it. We would want you to have a better plan to mitigate those types of things when you start. Have a good risk mitigation plan when you sign up. It's say, okay, I'm supposed to deliver this product by this date. What are my risks right now to getting there? And basically, it's a risk management approach of how would I mitigate these along the way so that my customer, whoever that is, feels confident that even if I run into some rough areas, I've got different ways of mitigating those and still deliver on time. So we're looking for that type of confidence. We know things happen technically. Sometimes things happen that are going to delay schedules. We understand that, but just having a credible plan to be able to rely on, and constant communication as well, being transparent. Don't wait till the last minute to say, hey, we've got a problem. That's important. That way we can work with you and maybe help you mitigate that as well from our side.
To reinforce one of those points, when NASA asks for a risk plan, saying we have no risks is probably not a good answer, right?
There's no such thing as zero risk.
Yeah, real quick, I actually want to turn that around a little bit. I think particularly with small businesses and even some of the programs within STMD, we are willing to accept more risk. You might not be on the critical path for a delivery or a mission component, but I think there's a realization that NASA needs to take some more risks to get us there faster. The fail early, fail often mantra is probably more appropriate to this kind of community, and we're willing to let you fail in order to be successful further downstream. So I think we can take advantage of that and not necessarily be afraid of it.
Yeah, sometimes we'll have a partnership with a small business and they become a key provider of a very unique component or subsystem. And then a larger business comes along and takes them over and decides that that's not a profitable area for them anymore. So now we have to scramble and find a different vendor who is capable of ensuring the technology to the point where we need. So occasionally have disruptions in the supply chain. Small businesses, but it's usually rare.
John Quinn, Exos Aerospace. Our team goes back a number of years. You may remember Pixie and then on to Morpheus and kind of some work we did there. Now it's been turned over to basically commercial providers. Is STMV still involved in that, or is that directly contacts we reach out to those awardees on the Lunar Lander project? And then I'll go to one of my passions real quick on a second tongue of that. We have a national science fair. Why aren't we launching a CubeSat for every school in the United States on a mission every year to incent the young kids to start dreaming? And we've been working on it for 5 years and it's fallen flat, but it seems like something that STMD, NASA, NSF should all be engaged in. We put in multiple submittals to try and pitch that idea, but I thought I'd throw it out here and kind of give you those two questions.
Yeah, let me try that. So your first point, yeah, I think Steve said the CLIPS providers, the initial round of CLIPS providers, that's probably your best entree, working directly with them or contacting them directly. To your second point, I completely agree. I think CubeSats were such a great opportunity. I hadn't thought about the high school level, but at least at the university level, that every college, engineering college ought to have a CubeSat opportunity for students to work with and learn how to actually build flight hardware, test and even fly hardware. And even if we push that down into the high school, I think that would be a tremendously powerful thing. I don't know where your NSF guy was here yesterday. I think he's sitting right at your table, so maybe we could huddle up and talk about doing something together to promote that. So
thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. I think we're out of time, so if we could just do a quick lightning round down the panel. If there's just one thing that you want the audience to take away from this panel, what's the big takeaway that you think they should have? And they give us 0 minutes to do it.
0 minutes to do it? Okay, so I'll go into the negative. This is the right time to reach out and for us to really develop even more commercial partnerships than what we've talked about here. Now is the time to do it. I think someone said here, we are open to more commercial partnerships. We want to take advantage of your strengths, of your new innovative ideas, your new innovative approaches. We don't want to do things the way we've always done things. And I think we've got the right leadership in place at NASA and all the way down through into the programs and projects to enable that. So we're very open to hearing your ideas and looking for ways that you can help us and all go together to return to the moon and even to Mars and beyond, not just those two destinations. We've got several other places that we want to go as well in deep space and so forth like that. So I don't want to say the sky's the limit. I guess you could say, right, space is it's not a limit.
So we are going to the moon, and it's creating a lot of new opportunities for small businesses to come up with novel ideas to help us solve some of our really big challenges. So I encourage everybody to participate in NASA's small business activities and send us your best ideas. We'd be glad to make them happen.
Yeah, so I just want to echo what Steve and Chris said and also say that we are really excited. This is as close to being back to the moon and even a real Mars program as I feel we've been in my 30-year plus career at NASA. We want you to be part of that, and we want you to share that excitement with all your colleagues and friends and families so that we can make this a truly inspirational thing for the nation.
Great. Thank you to the panel. Appreciate it very much.
Brad, thank you.
Thank you.